Bernie Sanders got saucy last night, and he went off on the issue of climate change, and he did a great job of linking it to foreign policy as well. Take a look.
I'd like to ask you, 3 consecutive American presidents have enjoyed stints of explosive economic growth due to a boom in oil and natural gas production. As president, would you be willing to sacrifice some of that growth, even knowing potentially that it could displace thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of blue-collar workers in the interest of transitioning to that greener economy?
Tim, in all due respect, your question misses the mark. It is not an issue of relocating people in towns. The issue now is whether we save the planet for our children and our grandchildren. The issue, as you should know, what the scientists are telling us is they have underestimated the threat and severity of climate change. You're talking about the Paris Agreement, that's fine. Ain't enough. We have got to, and I've introduced legislation to do this, declare a national emergency. The United States has got to lead the world. And maybe, just maybe, instead of spending $1.8 trillion a year globally on weapons of destruction, maybe an American president, i.e. Bernie Sanders, can lead the world. Instead of spending money to kill each other, maybe we pool our resources and fight our common enemy, which is climate change.
Thank you, Senator Sanders.
Now, CNN had a field day with this afterwards, and they did a fact check where they said, Bernie said we spend $1.8 trillion on weapons, but silly Bernie, that's the entire military budget. Yeah, I think if you go back and listen to it, that's what he means. When he talks about, like, oh, we spend $1.8 trillion on weapons, he goes on to say $1.8 trillion on killing each other. Yeah, he means he's talking about that's our military budget. He doesn't mean like that's literally the amount of money we spend we spend on weapons deals. That's not what he actually means. See, this is like they try to be context dense to play gotcha. That's what they do. They try to be context dense to play gotcha. Because I knew what he was trying to say there. What, they didn't know? CNN people didn't know? They're being like super literal to be like, aha, gotcha. Now, on the broader point though, I mean, he's obviously correct. The argument is, hey, we're wasting all this money. We spent $7 trillion in the Iraq War, $2 trillion in Afghanistan. We were lied to throughout both of those wars the entire time. Our people died. Civilians died. Nothing positive came out of this. We're policing the world. Nothing positive comes out of that. This is how we're spending our resources. This is what we're doing. You know, there are other options. You know, we can, like, I don't know, take this money and do a massive investment in a Green New Deal to get us off of fossil fuels, bring us renewable and green technology, and also, you know, save the planet in the process, fight back against climate change. Also, emphasis on the New Deal part of the Green New Deal, which is job creation, which gets back to the original point, which is, notice how they always ask the question. The question is always like, oh my God, this is obviously going to disrupt the job market because, you know, you have so many oil and gas jobs. So, I mean, are you willing to tell those people to piss off? It's like, that's the sense you get. That's the implication of these questions and how they're asked. And it's just like, it's an annoying way to frame it. Because, as Bernie rightly points out, it's like, you do know that we don't really have a choice and, like, we have to get off of fossil fuels at some point, right? Like, you do understand that. You do understand that that's not a matter of opinion. That's a matter of absolute necessity. So when you accept that that's the fact, it's a weird way to ask the question. Now, don't get me wrong. Do I think, you know, hey, this is a big change we're making and it's going to massively impact, you know, so many jobs? Absolutely. Absolutely. But that doesn't mean we don't act on it. In the same way that, you know, you can't say there are so many jobs tied to our criminal price gouging healthcare system, so how could we change it? It's like, well, you have to. You don't have a choice. We spend double than the rest of the developed world. This is unsustainable. People are getting ripped off. 500,000 people going bankrupt every year. 45,000 people dying because they don't have healthcare. I know a lot of jobs are tied to it, but the industry has to change. We don't have an option. And it's almost like just fear-mongering from a perspective that's incredibly primitive, in the sense that, like, think about a question being asked in an old school, like, 1700s or 1800s debate. I don't know when the telephone was invented, but imagine them saying, like, now, we have thousands of jobs tied to the Morse code industry. Are we sure we should be moving towards this telephone thing? I mean, you'd look at that and say, fundamentally, that's a ridiculous question. It's like fear-mongering about, we have so many jobs tied to the horse and buggy industry. Do we really want this car thing? Automobile thingy? You'd look at that now and be like, wow, you guys are really silly. It's the same thing when it comes to getting to green and renewable technology. And by the way, again, Green New Deal means we will create millions of jobs for this new economy. And that's the main point, is you have to look at this. Fighting back against climate change is a necessity, but you also have to look at it like a business opportunity. Now, you guys know me. I'm not like anti-business. So if you want to have the inevitable patents in this whole new field, if you want to lead the world, if you want to have job creation and wealth creation moving into the future, then you go all in on something like a Green New Deal to get us off of fossil fuels and bring us into the future. So point is, if you lead the way, all of the concerns go away. If you lead the world in this, well then, there's nothing but positives that can come about as a result of it, whether it's job creation or wealth creation. And it's always framed from the opposite perspective of like, oh my God, what if things change? Oh my God, what about all the jobs tied to the oil industry? And what we need to impress upon people is, no, we're with you in that we're the ones who are most concerned about those jobs going away, but we have a plan. And the plan is X, Y, and Z to transition to this new economy of the future. And it's a matter of, we're going to get there at some point. Do you want to lag behind China and lag behind other places? Or do you want to lead the way, in which case it works out for everybody? So I think it's good that he's impressing upon everybody that this isn't really a choice, that the way they're asking the question is fear-mongering. And, it's one of those things where they're trying to give Republicans a soundbite where the Republicans can, run it in an attack ad during the general election where they say, oh, Bernie Sanders wants to take away all of the oil and gas jobs. It's like for the same reason that they do the whole, a Green New Deal, it wants to ban airplanes. See how they spin it? Everything's like spun. It's not that they're saying, well, I mean, obviously we have to get off of fossil fuels at some point, so let's develop the technology of the future. No, it's framed as, they're going to ban airplanes. It's just such a disingenuous spin on it to try to, make your opponent look ridiculous without having to do any work. So it's frustrating, it's annoying, but I think Bernie handled that question very well. And I think it's time for the conversation to shift on this. It's time to shift to, first of all, we have no choice. We have to address this. Second of all, the question is, are we going to be the first to address it and get all the benefits, or are we going to drag our feet, in which case we won't get as many benefits, even though we'll be transitioning anyway?